We expect a great deal from our presidents. As leaders of a nation, a government, and a military, the office of the executive directly controls many important aspects of our nation, but not all of them. What influence does the president have on the most talked about aspect of our nation, the economy? More specifically, to what extent can any president create jobs in the economy at large? We examine jobs and the president's role in the economy of the nation today on The Professors.
From across the city and the 7 city colleges of Chicago, broadcasting from 63rd and Halsted at Kennedy King College. Professors take the art of conversation to a higher degree.
I'm Temple Hemphill from Kennedy King College. Joining me today are Professors Ted Williams from Kennedy King College, C.M. Winters Palacio from Malcolm X College, and Edward Davis from Malcolm X College. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start with unemployment rates. Let's talk about 2001 and move to the present.
Sure.
Okay. So in 2001, an unemployment rate was at 4.2%. Okay, at the end of 2001, and then in 2008, it was 6.7%. Right at the end of the Bush era. Okay. Now, in 2011, for the third consecutive month, it's been at 9.1%.
Sure.
What's going on?
Well, Temple, what we have to realize, and I think the larger question at hand here, is how does the president influence the economy? How responsible is the president for unemployment numbers? And what is funny when you listen to the political conversation, and actually funny really in a tragic way, is that so many people want to sort of blame President Obama for where unemployment is. And the real issue is that the economy is cyclical in many ways. So the economy goes up, the economy goes down. Now we obviously can do a variety of things through regulations, through tax breaks, et cetera, which I believe they're trying to do. But we are in a very challenging economic time. And I am a firm believer that whether President Obama would be in office or another president in office, we probably would still be facing some of these same challenges. And so it really is not as simplistic as presidential policies having an immediate impact on the economy. And so I think we're going to be facing these times for a while, unfortunately, regardless of what we do from the White House.
Okay. And so then here's something to look at. Does business influence the executive branch, or is it the other way around?
I think they're both strange bedfellows, and it's kind of like where you want them to work together, but it's not to the extent where they're supposed to be. So I guess from the outside looking in, it just seems such corruptive interdependence upon each other. It's kind of like a give and a take. Sure. If I give you this, then what do I get in return? Do I change or do I alter the legislation? And in some ways, it almost feels as if that the corporations, understanding the value and the role that they have, it's kind of like as if they hold the U.S. policy hostage. Yeah. You look at certain deals going down with I think it was Verizon, I think it was, and they wanted to change some type of policy to allow them to do offshore.
Yeah, we actually just had a situation in our state
the FCC legislation, wasn't it? They wanted some alteration in the FCC, right? And then in exchange they said, well, if we do it, the answer was like a no, immediate no, and they're like, wait, but if you do it, I'll bring X thousand jobs.
And then today, did you all hear the announcement? Verizon announced it. CNN released it on its breaking news. I received the text this morning, and Verizon just announced 45,000 jobs, and a lot of that is rehires. So it's the same with, and that leads us to the whole the way things are work. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, we just had a similar situation in our state. So we had a group of corporations that are basically threatening to leave the state based on tax policies, and Governor Quinn has been talking a lot about this. It's interesting because this works both ways. So on one hand, we look at that relationship and we say, well, man, that's bad that the businesses are really kind of threatening the government. But the government and businesses have to have a very strong relationship. Because on the flip side, I believe it's Bank of America who just attempted to put forth charges on using using an ATM machine. And it has been the politicians, people like Dick Durbin, who've come out very strongly and say, look, we got to protect people from you. So business and government are inextricably linked in our culture. And I do believe that the government does have an influence over whether businesses succeed or not. They are not the ultimate deciding factor, but they do create an environment where businesses can either rise or fail, and also where businesses can either exploit or not exploit, and that's a very important relationship.
Now, if we think about this in terms of time, in terms of unemployment rates and the different periods in time that Temple was just mentioning earlier, we have to really think about what happened in 2008 before we entered into this stage today. So if we look at the bailout and TARP and all of these different policies that were presented at the end of George W. Bush's second term, we definitely have to understand, I guess I could say, we have to understand why our economy is in the situation that it's in today. And we have to understand that the different policies that we've had, a very libertarian and laissez-faire policy as far as businesses being allowed to do as they please, this has really led us to the point where we are today, where we have such high unemployment rates and where we have our economy more or less.
So do you
stumbling.
think then that President Obama's jobs plan, which includes tax cuts for small businesses, but I think when we hear that, it sounds good. But according to, and I wrote his name down, Dr. Justin Wolfers, he is a professor at the University of Pennsylvania at the business school there, Wharton Business School. He, in an article, talked about how, in actuality, small businesses are considered businesses that employ 20 or fewer people in general, okay? And so, though there are many small businesses, that's not going, a small number of people are still going to be employed.
Sure.
It's not going to cause enough economic growth.
Sure.
What do you think about that? What are your feelings about that whole rhetoric in terms of, I don't know if rhetoric is the best word for that, but in terms of the push for tax breaks for small businesses, is that enough?
Well, could I start this? It's interesting to me that we see these larger corporations as though they're the main engine of our economy, but we have small businesses all across the United States which really work in our neighborhoods, which keep our neighborhoods going, which fuel our economy on that very micro level. And we have to really look at small businesses as providing jobs and providing networks in our communities where people can actually have different resources that they can turn to. Even our small banks, that we really need to look at how those.
But is that enough, though?
Yeah,
because, and that's the numbers, though, are they're not creating the large amounts of employment, and that's what we're.
Yeah, I've read somewhere that it's somewhere between 20 and 30% of new jobs are created by small businesses. So it's a lot smaller than I think oftentimes people believe. But the point at the end of the day, really, is not necessarily whether we will save the economy by giving tax breaks for small businesses. The question is, are we going to tax the larger corporations at a way that will provide for funding for our government? And what I think is very interesting about the president's jobs plan, which I think is very good, is that $40 billion will come from, through the jobs plan, will come from closing loopholes for oil companies and subsidies. And another $400 million come from this very debatable topic about taxing the rich and closing loopholes in their tax rate as well. So the reality is that yes, we can fund the small businesses. I agree with you. They probably will not save us at the end of the day, but what will save us is trying to find some of the larger entities and really having them pay their fair share of taxes.
Okay, and so then is anyone on the panel prepared to go to bat for higher earning individuals in terms of, no, I just want to be fair here. And
how so?
In the sense of the argument that they often will make is, why are we tapped and charged with saving the middle class? Is that a fair argument for, of course it's a fair argument if they want to have it, but I mean, is it their responsibility?
I don't know. You know, I'm not an economist. I'm only familiar. I'm the subject expert of my personal economy.
Right.
And I'm looking at the TV screen, and I do feel as if that there is an improper balance, and I don't understand. Granted, no, I don't make over $200,000, but let's be honest. A lot of the new wealth and the new millionaires that have been created within the last decade has been at the hands of the working class and some of the middle class as well.
Sure.
And their ability to find those loopholes and those special policy, for lack of a better word, I call them those special policy deals that allows them to accumulate so much wealth. And if there has been a disproportion, then if it's time to balance up the books, then I think, yeah.
It's not, to quote President Obama said it's not about class warfare. People want to make it, oh, it's the rich against the poor. You know, I mean, this is America. Heck, we all want to get rich. You know, we all hope to be in that place. We don't want to tax them too much because, heck, we get there.
But I think that's part of the problem now. I do. I think that's part of the problem. I think that I'll be honest with you. Sometimes, you know, you just say, you know, it doesn't take all day to recognize sunshine. And a lot of times when people go in these rooms and they make these deals, people don't really care. They really don't care. And someone would say, well, that's very euphoric of you to want to say that you want someone to care for the people, you want someone to love the people in order to really resolve the problem. I think a lot of times is that sometimes, you know, I look at the issues that we're having now. And it's kind of like you want to hit somebody on the arm and say, why are you surprised? You know, considering the events that have culminated, that have led us to this point, it's just as if you say, you know, I get so tired of Congress and all these policies, they work in a petri dish, you know. If I tweak this and I solve this, then I've addressed the problem. And there's no one actually, there's no fair share of all the key stakeholders sitting at the table actually how to resolve the problem. And some would say that gets to the very root of capitalism.
Okay, so then what's going on, Edward, with the whole, just the fight that the current president continues to face in terms of Congress? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, it's interesting when we look back at the election in 2008 when President Obama came into office. He had a majority, overwhelming majority in the House of Representatives in the Democratic Party and in the Senate. And it would have been nice, some people would say, to just go right on in and just create legislation one after the other instead of really trying to be peaceful and compromise with the Republican Party as he did, which is very political, very political on his end as far as being fair and being balanced as far as opening up the door to the Republican Party. But now that he doesn't have that overwhelming majority anymore, we see these problems. We see all of these different issues arising where the slightest thing can actually sort of make his plans go haywire. Especially if we look at this rhetoric of the job creators, right? If you watch Fox News, right, we don't want to tax the job creators, but we have to really think about those millionaires, those people who make over $200,000 a year or $200 million a year. Yes, they do pump money into our economy, but a lot of that doesn't go back into the economy. It might just stay in their pockets. And we have to really think about the heart of capitalism. We have to really think about those millions of people in our country who don't have health insurance, who don't have access to high-speed technology, wireless technology, right?
Which is part of the jobs plan. Let's talk about a couple other things that are
actually, Tim, if I could answer as well your political question, because the irony in all of this is that President Obama's jobs plan is a very bipartisan effort. There are billions of dollars in tax breaks, right, in this jobs plan. And this is not different from what President Reagan did. This is not different from what presidents have done historically. In fact, obviously, if you look at, we look at this historically, this whole question of the president influencing the economy. The president does have a very significant amount of power, and he has a variety of tools he can use. Tax breaks is one, but his public works aspect, which is, he's created jobs to, as we're going to talk about, technology, building schools. When FDR did this, he created the equivalent of 16 million jobs today based on population changes. And so this does have an impact. The creation of jobs through direct public works does have an impact, even if in the short term it does. But then tax breaks, the kind that he's providing, they're very significant, and the Republicans ought to support them because they're very much in line with their ideology.